Welcome to episode number 3 of 10,000 Miles. Today's guest is Andrew Pryfogle. Andrew's a great friend of mine. We've known each other for over 7 years. He's been a force of nature in my life, an innovator, a great thinker, a great leader, and a great business owner. He's the CEO and founder of CX Effect, a technology solutions distributor in my space where I participate and work and live off of ecosystems. So without any further ado, let's dive in with Andrew. Greetings, Andrew. How are you doing this evening?
Doing great, Vic. Good to see you, my friend.
Good. Hey, thank you, and good to see you as well. Super excited to have you on episode number 3 today. So thank you for making time tonight to do this. I really appreciate it.
It's an honor to be in the first 3. That's amazing.
Top 3, baby, with the hats, no less. And I love it. This is a new hat, by the way. I don't think I've seen this hat before.
It's a good hat, man. It's my favorite hat. You know, I just moved here from Sonoma, California, up here to New England, Western Massachusetts, and I wore this hat when I officiated my daughter's wedding.
Sweet.
In November. And then it got misplaced in the move, and I was freaking out. It's like, where's my hat? I can't believe this is like the most special hat. And we found it yesterday. So
it's perfect.
In one random box. So I figured.
So wait a minute. We've gone from officiating your daughter's wedding as being the top priority of wearing that hat to the number 3 podcast here, episode number 3 of 10,000 Miles. That's a pretty special wear, by the way.
There you go.
Cool.
Man.
Hey, why don't you start off by letting everybody know who Andrew is? They don't have the benefit of knowing you for the last 7 years like I do. So tell your story.
Yeah. Oh man, where to start? I've been in the tech space my whole career. I started really young, Vic. My first job, real job, was 13 years old, working in a total boiler room operation, selling the Chronicle and Examiner newspaper over the telephone. Nice. And did that all the way through high school, working 4 hours a day, 6 days a week. I was making good money as a kid in school, and learned some really important skills, as you can imagine, and how to communicate on the phone. Right.
I bet those are tough jobs, especially young.
Yeah, no doubt. Lots of funny stories about that, but got into the telecom space at MCI. My first job out of school, working in residential customer service, kind of the manufacturing floor of telecom, right? It was sweeping floors, right? That's kind of the bottom level you start at in telecom, and learned a ton through that. MCI was a great company, early days back in '87, right after the Telecom Act, and so much disruption in that space at the time. And then worked my way up into commercial customer service, and then got into outside sales, which is what I was gunning for the whole time. And started my sales career at MCI. From that, just combination of small companies and large companies, and got a feel of the startup life, pretty early on, and got a good sense of what that's like, and kind of found out that I got startup in my blood, and have had a lot of really lucky opportunities to really practice that and learn from some amazing people in that space. It's a different group of people, man. Yeah. These learning how entrepreneurs think, and how they lead, and how do you grow a company when you're resource constrained, and how do you every hire becomes critically important, right? Because you can't afford to miss. What do you do when plans go sideways and expectations are missed, and how do you adjust on that? And had some amazing mentors through that process, and and then I can keep going as far as all the way up to today. Do you want to hear?
No, we got time, and we want to hear all the nits and nats because it's important. Hey, but before you go on, I forgot to do something. I always forget it. Cheers, man.
Oh my goodness!
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Hey, yeah. What are you drinking over there tonight?
Drinking a little 16-year Glenlivet Scotch. Single malt. Yeah.
Very nice. Well, this is not a paid sponsorship, but this is my drink of choice these days. It's a tequila called Number One.
All right.
Super, super smooth. You can drink it straight up on the rocks.
Love it.
It's great. I would say it's not the most expensive tequila, but it's not the cheapest. And as you can see, you're going to love this. This will tie back later. This is a drink that I call the Moon Dance.
The Moon Dance.
And I'm going to tell you why it's called the Moon Dance. You're involved in it, whether you know this or not.
Wow.
And so I'm going to come back to it. But this is, tequila up to here.
Yeah. Good.
A little splash of cranberry and some lime. But I'm going to save this story for later. Let you know how integral in the Moon Dance you were.
This is a really heavy pour of scotch, my friend. I
love it.
We had it for a while. I needed to make sure I had enough to get me through. So,
by the way, for those who are watching, I text Andrew right before we're getting ready to go on tonight, and I go, "Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, there's a prerequisite to coming on the podcast. We're going to have a toast, and we're going to drink something together." And he says, "I don't drink." And for a minute, you got me, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, didn't I just text him on the weekend, and he was out with his wife and sent me a picture of him drinking a scotch or something?" And then you said, "On the days that don't end in Y." And I started laughing. I showed that to Chris. I showed that. She was like, "Oh, that was good. He got you." It was great.
There you go.
So bring it along. Tell me more. Let's keep getting in the weeds here a little bit.
Yeah. So, I think, I worked for MCI for 4 years. I did some startups after that. I left MCI, went to work for a company of 10 people. Funny story there, Vic. I was, as my first kind of sales leadership role, I was working for a small company out of St. Louis, and worked out of my home in Stockton, California.
Okay.
The honeymoon capital of California, by the way.
Nice. Really?
Not true. Rough town, but it was a starter home for me and Susie, a little 1,200 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1-bath home in Stockton that we could afford at the time. And I was working out of one of our little bedrooms. But I was on a call with a VP of engineering, a guy named Tim out of St. Louis, and we're chatting about something. I forget what it was. He says to me in the middle of the call, he says, "Whoa, hold on for a second." He said, "Oh my God." I said, what's going on? And he's like, the FBI just came in. And I was like, FBI? What do you mean? He's like, yeah, there's like 12 people in FBI jackets, and they got the owners up against the wall. They literally raided during this live conversation, took the two co-owners of the business away in handcuffs, and Tim and I were on the phone the whole time it happened, and that was the first time I ever lost a job. So
I have a listener challenge, by the way.
Yeah.
Anybody who that's happened to, comment in the comments section. There's gonna be crickets, Andrew. That's a 1 in a million.
That's right. So imagine having to go to Susie, my wife, and tell her that hey, strange. I think I just lost my job. So I left there. I got a job pretty quickly at a company called Phoenix Communications, which was kind of an early version of a CLEC, competitive local exchange company out of Sunnyvale. Went to work there, worked for a guy named Paul Goss, who I learned a ton from, both good and bad. You've got people like that, right?
Of course.
Paul was a really smart guy, had a ton of experience in telecom, and had been kind of grown up in that space. And I learned a lot from him. Built a team. My first real sales team had 10 people out there selling these services throughout Silicon Valley, and had a lot of success with it. But I was driving at the time about an hour and a half each way from the East Bay into Sunnyvale, and it was right around that time that my daughter was born, and so I had a newborn, Hannah. I was leaving before she got up in the morning. I was getting home when she's already gone to bed at night. And it wasn't sustainable. I mean, it was a real
sounds
problem.
like the basis for a great
relationship. Oh, absolutely. So I go to Paul's office and I say to Paul, hey, Paul, listen, I love my job. We're having a lot of success here. We're crushing our numbers. Been, really grateful for what I've learned from you. He says, but I'm hoping that we can figure something out, maybe get some flexible schedule in here or something. I can't sustain this anymore. I'm missing my daughter growing up, and that's a priority for me. And he said something to me I'll never forget, which was a shocker at the time, but in retrospect, I was super grateful. He says to me, Andrew, I understand, I get it, but I should tell you, man, I've been in this industry a long time, and I've never seen anybody succeed in this business who hasn't been through at least one divorce.
Mm.
That's what he said to me.
Pretty
So
scary.
set me back on my heels. I mean, I was like, wow, that's nuts. That guy, he just said that to me. Is that what he's suggesting? Is that's the, the path for me is to blow up my family? I paused for a second.
So you picked up the phone and go, hello, Susie.
That's right. I got some more news for you.
I got some more news for you. Remember that job I lost? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I literally, I sat back in my chair for a second, and then I leaned forward. I said, well, Paul, I got to tell you, man, thank you. Thank you for giving me some really, really good clarity around what I need to do. I need to go ahead and tender my resignation, give you 2 weeks notice. I did that right on the spot.
Good for you.
And he was like, seriously? I was like, well, yeah. I mean, you kind of laid out a pretty clear choice, right? And it's and there's zero question in my mind what's important to me. So
of course,
I walked out of his office. I went downstairs, walked into my office, closed my door, sat in my chair for a second, and just kind of a little dumbfounded. What the heck am I going to do? My phone rang, and it was a guy that Bob Faber.
Yeah.
Bob Faber, who I've known for a very long time, calls me up and says, hey, just wanted to run something by you really quick. I don't know if you're interested, but I'm over here at LDDS Metro Media. We called it the Stuttering Mormon Long Distance Phone Company. And in LDDS Metro Media, I'm in national accounts over here, and they're looking for somebody for a national accounts role in Northern California. You'd be working out of your home. Are you interested? I'm like, funny you should ask. Yes, I'm interested.
Yeah.
So I went from there to work out of my home at LDDS. That turned into LDDS WorldCom and all the stuff there. A couple years at AT&T after that, which was a crazy experience. AT&T was the biggest company I ever worked for. I remember after 2 years at AT&T, I had admittedly one of the cushiest jobs ever. I was a data network account executive at DNAE, working in the middle markets branch in San Francisco. This was in the early days of the internet, and I was one overlay rep amongst 40 direct sellers that were all selling traditional voice services to businesses throughout the Bay Area. And anytime that the word data came up, or network or internet or anything like that, it would come to me. Okay. And this was shooting, fish in a barrel. It was the easiest job ever. And I would golf at least twice a week. I was got my shooting in the low 80s. I was and I was making decent money, but I was also getting a little bored. Right? I mean, I could only do that for a little while.
Sure.
And I had a boss there that had already raised at AT&T in sales. They capped your income. You could only make up to a certain amount in commission. She'd already raised the cap for me because I'd blown through it. And now I'm up against that next cap, and I sit down with her and I say, hey, Patrice, I've had a really good year, and there's a lot more left of this year, and I know I can do a lot more, but it's only August and my income's capped for the rest of the year. I'm 5,000% of my annual quota, right? Something clearly They didn't, it's not me. They set the quotas too low, obviously. And I was wondering, just respectfully, if you'd raise the cap so that I can keep earning this year.
Yeah.
She says to me, Vic, Andrew, you've done a great job, but I just kind of think you've made enough money this year. So I thought that was interesting. And so I said, well, I guess perhaps I've worked enough this year then, right?
Yeah. What year was that, by the way? What year was that?
That would have been 93, probably 93, somewhere around that.
You know what's amazing? And I'll just interject here. I have been in the channel for 7 years now, and you come close to the AEs on the provider side, and I'm still having conversations here in 2024 with people who find themselves in that same category.
Yeah.
Hey, I've hit all my numbers. It's August or it's September, and I'll really help you close this deal in the fourth quarter. But I got to be honest with you, I'm not going to make an extra nickel this year. And it just boggles my mind. I
Yeah.
don't, because the old saying, show me your incentive plan and I'll tell you how people will behave.
Comp
And
plans
so,
drive
yeah, so
behavior.
for you, it's like, hey, we're still seeing that after all these years. I
Yeah.
don't understand the connection between that. But anyway, go ahead.
It's mostly I found it's mostly leaders that have frankly never carried a bag, right? They've never been in sales, and so you're right that it doesn't connect with them, that comp plans drive behavior.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of, I was bored with the job. It wasn't challenging me. I was, that was kind of the last straw for me, but I left there and I went to work for a company of 10 people. And I was the only sales guy in this new company. I was their VP of sales, and it was a small engineering company that had manufactured this really cool product that was being sold to telcos, basically into the CLEC space. And it was a hardware play. It was 5 minutes from my house, and really smart team. And I got real excited about being a part of this. And a little company called Oasis Telecom. And we manufactured a box that was this is funny. It was a box that converted an E1, which is for those that don't know, that's like the European version of a T1, if you will. And it converted that into T1s in a way that would take an OC3, if you boil it all up to an OC3, which is and breaks it down into how many T1s can be delivered out of an OC3. And the way that carriers would normally do that is through this multiplexer, this big box that they'd set up in their carrier, in their central offices. And we had manufactured this box that could do 24 T1s, deliver 24 T1s from a DS3 directly into a 2RU space on a rack. And it was incredibly efficient, really inexpensive. And we had just started making this product, and I went all over the country meeting with every CLEC on the planet, talking to them about this solution. And people were like, that's fantastic. I need that. Here's a PO for an order as soon as you guys release it. And we just started stacking these up, right? Until about a year in, we hadn't quite released the product yet. Really important lesson around that. My CEO had decided that, man, we're getting such good feedback from customers. If we took a lot of outside funding, we could accelerate the development and get it to market faster. But man, they're so hungry for it. Do we really need to do that? If we just bootstrap this thing? If we just bootstrap this thing, we'll make a killing, right? We won't have to give up any of the company, and we'll all make a lot more money. And after he made that decision, just a few months after that, I started to get this reaction from customers. Wow, that's amazing. Love that idea. We really need that. I'm curious, have you heard of the company called Cerent? Cerent was a company that had gotten millions of dollars in funding from Cisco predominantly, and some other sources. And they had developed a product that did something very, very similar, but they got a bunch of funding behind them.
Yeah.
And then before they even released their product, they sold the company for $50 million.
Great.
And in our company, our funnel just went to zero overnight.
Yep.
And that I learned some important things there about fundraising, right? About I think there's some romance in the idea of being able to bootstrap a company, and sometimes that's the smartest thing to do. But man, other times it's time is money, right?
Hey, not only is that a lesson in finance and bootstrapping,
yeah,
I learned a similar lesson, and you're going to laugh your head off when I tell you where I learned this from.
Yeah,
we were out visiting a customer in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yeah.
And we were staying at, I forget the name of the hotel we were staying at. And the night we got there it was the night before the meeting, we just decided to eat inside the hotel. They had a decent restaurant. We got a very nice server. And somehow she said, oh, hey, what do you guys do? What's going on? Yeah. Oh, we're in technology. And, oh, do you guys build anything? Do you make anything? I said, no, we're sort of like sales brokers per se, best I can do. She goes, oh, no, I understand people who make things. My dad invented the Nerf football.
Whoa.
And I said, come on. Yeah. I said, she goes, yeah, but back in the day when the Nerf football was invented, he didn't get any royalties. He worked for a company. He was an inside inventor. He was supposed to make products, and I'm sure he got a nice bonus and a raise, but heck, I'm working here. But she said to me, here's the rule of invention. She said, and my dad told me this, and it still stands true. For every brave, bright, unique idea you think you have, the second you decide you have a unique idea, there's a 99.8% chance that somebody else has that idea, is already developing it, and it's a race to market.
Yeah, that's
it's a race to market. So I got this from the father of the inventor of via this woman. This wisdom came from the guy who invented the Nerf football.
Wow.
It's about taking an idea and executing and getting it to market to get that edge.
That's right. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I think that was, the sidebar of your lesson.
That's absolutely right. And what does our friend Matt Coughlin say? You're early until you're late.
You're early. I use that all the time, by the way.
Oh, me too. Absolutely. That was a painful example of that. So I left there, went to work for really kind of this next role kind of helped accelerate everything else that I'd ended up doing. So went to work for New Edge Networks. New Edge was one of the earliest pioneers in DSL technology, high-speed internet, DSL services. And by the way, focused on tertiary markets. So we didn't sell DSL into San Francisco and Chicago. We sold it in places like Bakersfield and Fresno and, San Luis Obispo and those types of markets. And I opened up the West Coast for them. They were headquartered out of the Portland area, just across the river in Vancouver, Washington. And we started to grow the heck out of that business. And I had a lot of fun doing that. We built out a sales team, went to the channel, by the way. We sold through partners. That was the first time I'd really actually started selling through partners, which kind of got in my blood quickly, as you know. And that was going really well until I was approached by this other company that offered me this role with a lot more money and interesting opportunity and to take on more responsibility. And I took this role that was, again, about 10 minutes from my house, super convenient. And my first day on the job, my boss comes in and says to me, "Hey, our regional director in Southern California just quit, and I was wondering if you'd be interested in taking over the whole state, not just Northern California, but the whole state." I said, "Sure, I can. Yeah, let's do that." Got on a plane the next day. We flew down there and met all the people, had to spend a day down there and learning about kind of what I was going to be doing across the whole state. Come back the next day. I'm in my office. I'm like totally jacked. This is taking off. This is great.
Yeah.
My boss walks in the office. This is day 4 in the company. Says to me, "Andrew, this is going to sound really weird, but do you have any other irons in the fire?" Day 4. I'm like, okay. Irons in the, what are you talking about? And he's like, "Well, like any other opportunities that maybe." I was like, "Dude, yeah, I had lots of them and I picked you, right? Now you're going to tell me I was an idiot. What's going on?" Right? And he says, "Well, this is really difficult, but I just learned that we've run out of money and I'm pretty certain they're going to shut the company down like tomorrow."
Wow.
And I'm like, "Oh my God, you're kidding me." So he walks out of my office. I'm dumbfounded. What the heck am I doing? I just left a great job to come here. And he comes back in my office about 30 minutes later and says, "Andrew, I just got this call from this headhunter. They're looking for the head of sales at this company called GoBeam. Have you heard of GoBeam?" I said, "Yeah, I know all about them. They're great. They're, startup company in the Voiceover IP space. And,
Sure.
and we used to sell DSL to them. They were one of my partners. And yeah, I know them well." He says, "Well, they're looking for a head of sales. I think you'd be a lot better fit for it. Do you mind if I share your name?" I said, "Great, perfect, do it." So got my name over there. That same afternoon, I had a call with Rob Stevenson, their CEO, and had a great call. I scheduled an interview the next day in person. And so when I hung up that call, I'm thinking to myself, well, what am I going to do? I mean, this GoBeam thing sounds right up my alley. I'm really fired up about that. but I'm going to be out of work here for the next few weeks. What do I, So I picked up the phone. I called Disney. And this was on a Wednesday. Said to the Disney cruise agent, I said, "Do you guys have any chance? By any chance, do you have any cruises leaving the next few days?" Well, yeah, we got one leaving on Saturday. And I said, any availability? And she's like, "Yeah, no, probably. I mean, I'll check. She says, "Huh, looks like we have a cancellation." I said, "Really?" So I go home that evening and I say to my wife and my 5-year-old daughter at the time, I said, "Guys, I have some good news, bad news. Bad news is that job I just took just fell apart, and the good news is I've got another job. I think I have another job lined up. I have an interview tomorrow. It looks really, really good. I'm perfectly suited for it." I said, and on top of that, we're going on a cruise leaving on Friday and on a Disney cruise. And so I literally got the job offer while I was on the cruise, got back from the trip and started my career at GoBeam. And GoBeam was fantastic. I mean, that's what really kind of got the whole startup thing in my blood. GoBeam was the first commercial deployment of hosted voiceover IP in the country, and I was the 10th employee. Rob Stevenson and Jeff Stern, the co-founders, both Harvard grads, Harvard MBAs. They were incredibly smart. Sandhill background, lots of VC money behind them, and a lot of experience there. Rob Stevenson was one of the smartest financial minds I'd ever worked with. I learned a ton about corporate finance from him in fundraising and all that kind of stuff. And we took this big idea and started to sell hosted voice at like $55 a seat. We had a lot to figure out. We had to, we made a lot of mistakes, had to figure out how to go to market. Nobody had done it before, did it through partners exclusively. And started to learn kind of about the VAR community and interconnects. Those were these small companies that sold PBXs, phone systems, physical phone system. Was teaching them how they could sell this hosted phone system instead. Right. We had a great run there, and about 2 years in, Rob Stevenson comes in and says, "Hey, if we're going through some changes here, and I'm bringing in a new CEO of the company. His name's Bill Jarvis, and you're going to be reporting up to Bill." And Bill was a really, really talented leader. He a great developer of people, great visionary. I learned a ton from him. Had a lot of respect for him. He came from the wireless space and had been at companies like. Is it Nextel? Was that the one that had the walkie-talkie?
Like the walkie-talkie.
Yeah. That's right. So he was an executive there and been there for a long time, and we had a blast together. And about 6 months in, he calls me up and says, "Andrew, I want to let you know about a decision I've made. I've decided to hire a new head of sales." And I said to him, "Well, that's my job." And he says, I know. He says, but this guy I'm bringing in, I think he can take us to a whole nother level. He's a really talented guy. And most importantly for me is I think you can learn a ton from him. And it was a bit of a gut punch, right?
Sure.
Because I'd been at this from the get-go. And I said to him, because I remember I was driving down I-5 in California. Beautiful drive if you've ever done it. It's like one of the worst drives ever, actually. It's awful. And he says, I said, well, Bill, I got to tell you, I really think that's like a bonehead decision, right? I don't understand it, but I trust you and I trust your instincts. And if you think this is somebody I can learn from, then I'm all in. Let's do it. And that's when he hired a guy named Tim Gaines. And Tim Gaines was a guy that I probably learned more about professional selling from Tim Gaines than I did from anybody else on the planet.
Really?
Tim was a incredibly smart guy, understood kind of professional consultative selling better than anybody I'd seen. he invested a ton of time and energy in kind of teaching me and still gave me a lot of freedom to run my business, but also became a really close mentor of mine. And I give him a lot of credit for a lot of things that I do today, right? You probably can point to people in your life that are like that.
Well, I tell you
and,
what, if I could just jump in here a second, it's
yeah.
these stories that never surprise me.
Mm,
Anybody who's laid down a path to achieving anything successful
yeah.
in the business world, whether it be an entrepreneurial spirit or working for a big company, has had these tough times and these tough lessons,
Yeah.
and the ability to take a gut punch, as you called it,
Yeah.
take a step back and move on from it and thrive.
Yeah.
And be
That's
willing
right.
to take these. If I could take a moment here just to stay on theme, I was working for Bear Stearns.
Yeah.
I was the CIO of a company called EMC Mortgage Corp, and we specialized in maturing defaulted loans, mortgages.
Mm,
So we were a default shop. So right as Bear Stearns falls, we fall into the arms of JP Morgan Chase. 6 months later, Washington Mutual goes into receivership. And now Chase has 3 companies on their hand, and they have to bring 3 companies together, and they have some decisions to make. And they were sort of re-interviewing for all these pretty senior roles. And I ran all of the default technology for EMC at the point, and we were many, many moons ahead technologically than the other places, because that's all we did.
yeah.
We didn't focus on other stuff. We didn't focus on the customer that paid every single month on the first with an ACH. Like we had hard work. We had to try to get people into programs where they could afford to stay in their home, and we were doing it for years prior. Well, with the crisis, now we got 3 companies put together, and I had to interview for a job all over again. I wasn't going to lose my job, but I had to interview for the senior role. And they chose the incumbent. They chose a guy named Tom Radkevich, a guy named Rad. He and I are great friends today. And when the guy who was the CIO called me and told me the selection, I said these exact words to him. The guy's name was Tom Morgan. He was our boss. And I said, "Hey, Tom, I'm highly disappointed I didn't get selected for the role. But what'll happen is I'll dust my knees off and I will come back tomorrow and I will be completely enthusiastic, because I think what's left behind for me, running default across all of the entities, reporting to Rad, I think that there's enough meat on the bone for me there to make a difference."
Yeah.
Many people would have imploded. Maybe my former self would have imploded in that scenario, or like you, hey, it's a bonehead move, but I'm in and I'm going to learn. And I learned a lot from Rad.
Yeah.
Rad was a guy who was he was very politically savvy, but very effective in his job, and a great, great, great guy. Just a great guy. I consider him a friend today. We still stay in touch. He's very, very funny, very smart, very, very, very accomplished.
Yeah.
And he's got a great gig today consulting at Gartner. So great sort of, he retired from Chase and now he's sort of, statesman. I don't want to call him elder statesman. He's not too much older than me, but he's a great guy. But these points, and the reason I am, sort of build on your theme here, is that these are the moments that make all the difference in people's lives. Like when you get that gut punch, what do you do about that gut punch? Right. So you decided at that moment, hey, I could implode or explode, and then I'll be off onto something else, and I'll believe I'm the smartest guy in the room. But I can show my disappointment in a good way, and then be willing to see if I'm right or wrong. And in this case, what you're describing is that you got a lot of great stuff from that next journey. So continue on. I'm sorry to jump in, but
I'd like to be able to say that I handled every kind of disappointing thing that hit me in the future the same way, and that's definitely not true. There are times where I handle it really poorly, and other times
we all have
really well. And you look back at it and you're like, man, to take it with a dose of humility and think about, you're disappointed. It's a gut punch. It's a turn you weren't expecting. what can I learn from this? How do I come out of this better, faster, stronger? Right. Those are the things that I kept, hammering into my own head. And I've learned a lot from that experience. Tim was a great leader, great mentor of mine. To this day, you've heard me use the term "suppose for a moment."
Yeah.
Right? That's a Tim Gaines
That's
term.
so cool.
I learned that from Tim Gaines.
Great.
This idea of being able to paint a picture of what an alternative kind of outcome would look like, to get as a way to get people to think bigger and think beyond kind of their own limitations.
Here, I thought you got that from the Twilight Zone.
Oh, really? Yes.
Picture if you will.
Picture if you will.
Right. See, I learned something else about you 7 years later.
Good.
I love it.
Yeah. So I spent another few years at through GoBeam. We then sold the company to Covad. You have to pronunciate that word very carefully nowadays. It was Covad. They were the kind of a leader in the DSL space, publicly traded. Rolled up to Charlie Hoffman, who was the CEO there, and we now took this GoBeam idea and rolled it across a national footprint, right? And man, learned a lot from that experience. That's where Bob Mounte, who's my CRO today, and a dear friend of mine, kind of a co-founder of CX Effect. We met each other at Covad, and he ran the East, I ran the West, and we took this thing on the road and started to sell through partners all over the country. A platform that, frankly, we'd find out in some of the most painful ways possible, it just wasn't ready to scale across a national footprint. Man, it started to have some technical challenges. Funny story. I had one day they reorganized and decided, Andrew, you're going to run channel nationally, and Bob is going to run direct nationally. It'll be peers, but that's how we're going to separate it. And we're implementing this right away. Can you get on a plane and fly to Jersey City tomorrow to meet the team on the East Coast? Sure, I'm all in. I packed my bag that night, get on a red eye. I'm traveling like in, pair of sweats and flip flops and comfy clothes for the red eye. I get to Jersey, to Newark, get to my hotel, check in early, unpack my bag. And I've got my suit and my tie. I'm going to look sharp my first day there, meeting all my people. And I have no shoes. So I'm thinking, shit, I haven't packed shoes. So I literally walked in to my first day on the job in Jersey City. This whole team of, there's 50 people around, and here comes their new fearless leader, and I'm decked out in my best threads, man, suit and tie, looking fantastic, and flip flops, and saying, "Hey, I'm from California. This is how we roll." They all got a big laugh out of it, and then as soon as the mall opened, I went and bought some new shoes. But
it's a great story.
Yeah, no doubt. But we had a great time there. That was talk about lessons being that you had to learn about how you build a channel, right? There is a way to actually sign up too many partners and go too deep in a market.
Yeah.
And we did that. We signed up anybody with a pulse. And then what happened is when I remember, like, take Chicago as an example, we had 8 channel managers in Chicago and a sales leader there. And we had signed up every single potential partner that could sell hosted voice in Chicago. We were dominating that space. We had, we probably had 40% market share nationally in the early days of that space. And when our network completely melted down, I'm talking like not an hour-long outage, but days long, right?
Wow.
The technology that no one had conceived about how it would scale with that kind of load on it, and it started to just fall apart on us. And man, what a painful lesson, Vic, because there wasn't anybody else that you could go talk to that didn't know, right? I mean, for years, when I'd go speak at an event in Chicago, I'd have to start with a public apology.
Oh, no.
Oh, it's painful. Yeah. But we learned a ton from there, and met some great people, met some great partners, had a lot of success doing that. And I think I got also maybe a little bit of a big head for a little while there.
Okay.
I started to read my own press clippings a bit, right? I left there, went to work for a company called Pantera Networks, and Pantera was they lured me over with a big payday and bunch of stock, and I went into this small company as their VP of sales to take them on a national footprint and blow this thing up. And I was hired by a guy, really smart guy, Artie Chang. He's still there. He's the founder and CEO of this company. Pantera was another hosted voice over IP company, but had this unique platform in kind of a SaaS oriented service that was very different. And he was a pure engineer, had no sales background, had never run a sales organization. And I really liked him at first. We got along at first really well, but then as things got into the mix, of the day to day, we thought very, very differently, and we were like oil and water, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for 11 months, I built that company. We were crushing our sales targets. I was on the road constantly, but Pete and I were just at each other's throat the entire time. And finally, he calls me in his office 2 weeks before my stock vested to let me know that he was letting me go.
2 weeks.
And 2 weeks before my stock vested. And he was pretty cold about it, right? I mean, he wasn't a it wasn't a warm, amicable kind of parting. And I was pissed, right? I mean, I wanted to go nuclear on the guy.
I get it.
And and I left there really disappointed because I'd left an amazing gig at Covad and had a lot of success there. I helped this guy build this business up and grow all this revenue, and then he's firing me, seriously, right? That, by the way, was July 1st of 2008, which happened to be my wedding anniversary as well.
Nice.
And so, there's a pattern here. I come home.
Honey, I lost my job. We're going back to Disney. Kids, pack the suitcase. We are going back to Disney.
Oh man, no doubt. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the experience in that I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't gone through it. Because what I did after that is I made the decision that I never wanted to be in a company again where I wasn't controlling my own destiny, my own fate.
Yep.
Where my individual effort mattered and had, a big impact. And so I decided to start my own company at that time. It was Terrapin Solutions. And we were in the early days of cloud computing, cloud infrastructure, early days of UCaaS and CCaaS before we called it that. I built out a portfolio of suppliers that were really unique in the space. One of my earliest suppliers, companies like Simple Signal,
Sure.
And Michael Sturl, who you know well, and
Yep.
and then later company out of Philly called Evolve IP, and got Pinka and Guy Fardone and all those guys on board, and Gary Coben and that whole crew, right?
Yeah.
And we started to sell
Love those guys.
early days of virtual desktop and all that kind of stuff, but we sold it all through partners. Vic, I built out this. We became what was a master agent at the time, which is now called a technology services distributor, but specialized in all things cloud. And started to build up that company. And in 2011, I became a supplier to Intelisys.
Okay.
Which was we would go to Intelisys partners and basically teach them that, hey, if it looks, walks, talks like this, it's probably a cloud opportunity. Give us a call. We're going to parachute in and help you work that deal and close that business. And I remember in the fall of 2011 at Channel Connect, which is Intelisys, they're famously known for their fall Channel Connect shows at the time, and I went out there as a supplier. Spoke a couple of times, had a private room set up where we're demonstrating some Evolve IP DAS solutions and other things like that. And just the timing was right. We were the belle of the ball. People were all excited about all this new stuff, and we wowed them all. And Dana Topping comes up to me, who's one of the majority owners at Intelisys, and comes up to me and, to paraphrase, says, hey, we got cash, you got cloud, we should do a deal,
Nice.
And so they ended up acquiring my business. We announced it in May at Channel Partners in Vegas. And me and my team, Bob Faber and Georgina Martinez and Ray Nilsson and all these guys that were with me at the time, we all joined the Intelisys family, and that kicked off, no doubt, my most rewarding 7 years of my career on that run. It was a remarkable run, and that's where we met, right? That's where we met. Was that
2016 is when I first met you.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. So as far as I could tell from that whole synopsis, you brought Intelisys beyond pipes and plumbing.
Yeah, no, yeah, we did. I mean, it was interesting. You know, Intelisys was kind of they were the biggest master agent at the time. They
still are.
Built out a hell of a business. Yep, still are. They were growing. They had an amazing leadership team. Rick Sheldon, Rick Deller, two co-founders, and then Dana Topping was the other majority owner. They were smart enough at a very important point in I want to say it was 2009, where they decided to continue to scale this company. They needed a professional leadership team, right? And they hired Jay Bradley, and Jay brought on Carol Beering, who's legendary is from a sales ops perspective, and they built out this team. And so when they acquired my company, I rolled right into Jay's organization and worked directly for Jay, and worked very closely with Carol and people like Rick Rebus and Justin Morano and Mike McKinney and all these really talented people there. And I brought in a whole new set of suppliers and technologies that were brand new to that community. But it wasn't just that. I think it was, I was given unprecedented freedom to just express myself, to chase after my big ideas. They challenged me to just go innovate, go do what you're good at, enjoy it. And it was a remarkable run. They let me do some crazy things, Vic. I mean, and they gave me a lot of freedom to do it. And Jay once in a while would, reel me back in, and that's
what Jay does.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He knows when to push and pull.
He does.
Yeah. He's a great people guy.
Jay was still to this day is a great friend and was an amazing mentor for me for that period of time I was there. And man, we had some fun. We did some amazing things, and I got to try big things, and I built a marketing. I ran all of marketing and all of our education and events and of course the whole cloud practice and supplier management. It was a big role. And, but I was thriving. I just absolutely was thriving. I surrounded myself with some amazing people on the marketing side. They allowed me to do what I love to do. And we changed an industry, we got to, let me give you
the other side of the lens there, because I don't know if you know this, maybe I've said it to you in the past, and I've echoed it a little bit at CX Effect events, but, so it's 2016. I leave my last corporate post, and Steve Gerhardt, my business partner, calls me and says, "What are you going to do next?" I said, "I'm going to start my own boutique company." He said, "Don't do that. You really need to see my ecosystem." Because I'm the pipes and plumbing guy, I know, and he's a great connectivity guy and network guy. But he said, there are so many products and services in this ecosystem that you know everything about. And I think you would be amazing in this space. So he said, "I got a ticket in a room for you. Come on out to the Meritage in Napa." This is 2016 of October. And I come out, and the first thing I realize is that everybody's happy. I see happy people. I see an abundance of happy people. So all of a sudden I'm like, well, this isn't the usual conference. This isn't a grind. Okay. People are genuinely, and this is 1,500-ish people, right? This is not a small group. It's a big group. Right. And as I tell the story all the time, and you've heard it before, the screens are 60 feet wide. They're 18 to 20 feet tall. Yeah. It looks like Steve Jobs is getting ready to walk out on stage. Very professionally done.
Yeah.
I mean, not like some company that's, chipping in from 5 yards. This is like, these are guys hitting 300+ yard bombs. And this is a big deal.
Yeah.
And there's an opening and there's maybe a little something going on. And then Andrew Pryfogle walks on stage. And at first I didn't know what to make of what was going on. You come out and you got on this fedora and this hat, and you might have even been wearing a vest at the time, and you're very, very comfortable. And that's when I gave you the name P.T. Barnum, right? Because I'm looking around, I'm like, this is a circus, and this guy is leading the charge. And there are many more events where you enthusiastically have led this community to just great places. But you were very pivotal, and I never told you this. You were very pivotal in that trip for me just making a decision to join D&M and to get and push my career into the channel.
Wow.
You delivered great data, facts, and you gave me the couple of things I could go home with to say I could do that, that, and that. You know, a lot of times you go to conferences, you meet 5,000 people, you know, you're flooded with information and you're trying to decipher that one thing.
Yeah.
But I remember at that time we were talking about contact center as a service, CCAS. And I think at the time the stat was less than 10% of the people had converted to contact center as a service. Yeah. And I knew the 5 nines and nice and contacts and all the Genesis and the rest of all these people that were offering cloud. And I just started thinking, wow, you mean to tell me that the total addressable market here is what's left is 90 to 95% of what's going on? We could crush this. I mean, and it's only gone crazy from there. But your presentation, your ability to distill information down to simple terms. I'm a data guy. The data that came out, the pure facts about what the opportunity like, and to also express the types of technologies and things beyond contact center. There was more context there. And to deliver it in a style that you could grasp, you can get it, you can go home, you can action it, and you can drive a business plan behind it. So Steve should call you. And when he listens to this podcast, and he should make sure that, you know, you are, you know, you're thanked, because it was your presentation that really, that got me going and made me decide that, you know, I should be in the channel, that the opportunities were great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, it was an amazing team that would pull off those events. You know, it was, the amount of work that went into them. But, you know, Rick, Dana, Jay especially allowed me the freedom to go do that kind of thing. Right.
It's great.
And, you know, it's nuts. To this day, I'm still amazed by it. The countless keynotes that I gave for Intelisys at Channel Connect, or later at a, you know, Super 9 Convergence, or the mind shares we do around the country, whatever. Not once did any of those guys ask me what I was going to talk about.
Really? That's amazing freedom.
Yeah. They never said, hey, can I see your presentation? Can you walk me through the themes, what we're going to talk about? They just, and maybe at times they should have, maybe I should have given them even more heads up at times. But the point of it for me was, man, these guys just trusted me, right? They knew that we were in lockstep on what we were building together. Yeah. That they trusted my instincts about where things were going next. There it is, man. There you go. Yeah. And they allowed me to do what I was really passionate about. And my happy place to this day, Vic, is on stage speaking. Right. I mean, that's what I love to do. Yeah. And when I get a chance to do it, it's fantastic. It's funny, you know, Rick Rebus. Rick was a great guy at Intelisys, and he was this kind of bubbly, you know, vivacious kind of, you know, personality. And he didn't like to be on stage, but he was great at working a room. And so we had this great tandem, right? I'd speak, and then I'd walk off stage, shake a few hands, and disappear, and he'd work the room for me, which is fantastic. And at night, I've always been I always go to bed pretty early, and they used to give me a really hard time about that. Yeah. I was at an event in Greenville, South Carolina. This was after ScanSource had acquired us, and the next morning I was speaking at a big conference, and we were at this bar downtown Greenville, and it was the whole crew. There's like 20 of us there, and it was like right on the street, a little elevated up above the street. About 8:45, 9 o'clock rolls around, and I got to figure out it's time for my Irish goodbye. You know, I
Yeah.
got I'm speaking in the morning.
Yeah.
I got to get out of here. These guys have been doing really hard. I got to go. So I get up to go to the bathroom, and then I walk out a side door, and I have to walk past the restaurant towards my hotel. So I scooch down really low, and I duck, and I walk underneath the window, and I think I'm totally in the clear. But what they see is they see a hat that goes right in front of the window. I was caught cold.
You were done.
Yeah. So, but they soon caught on that hey, let Pryfogle get his sleep. He's going to be up at 8 o'clock tomorrow speaking in front of a big crowd, and we're going to be we're going to be recovering from a hangover. So
I've told Stevie G that nothing good happens after midnight.
So true.
Nothing good. And what happened was it was 2016. It was earlier, before Channel Connect. I went to Channel Partners. So my son and I went to Vegas. It was his senior year in high school, and we were doing a father-son thing, and we had a good time. I took him to see Pitbull. We went out to the desert and shot some guns, and we did a lot of cool stuff. And it happened that Channel Partners was going on at time. So Steve's like, oh, you got to meet us for dinner. So we meet him for dinner, and we're at some steak place and maybe the Palazzo. I forget where we were. I think it's called Cut. And we're with Ryan Kelly. And at the times he was with Netwolves. And Steve had a few, and he's feeling great. And he said to Alex, so Alex pushes the menu over to me and goes, Dad, what am I going to do? Look how expensive these steaks are. And you know what? As a father, I felt great because he was conscious of the cost of the menu.
Yeah.
And Steve overhears him. He says, Alex, these guys have gotten so much business from your father over the year. You order the most expensive steak on this menu. Order 2 of them. Take one, bring it back to the room. So he points me, the cheapest steak on the menu in 2016, mind you, was $80 in Vegas.
Yeah.
And so he points to the $80 steak and said, is it okay that I get that? I said, yeah, it's fine. You can get that. And I was proud of him because, he's not oblivious to the cost of things, and he was respectful. But point I was trying to make, we got in where were we? Sorry, I lost my thought a little bit here. Prior.
Things happen after midnight.
So we go to Dre's, right? Yeah. We go to Dre's, right? And, I say to Jay, Alex says, Dad, we're going to a bar. How am I going to get in? I said, well, it's not really a bar. It's a private party. It's a private party. It's okay. And Jay goes, and I paid for it. So they're going to let you in. It's a private party. So we go to Dre's. We have a good time.
Yeah.
Gearhart does his thing, creates a crowd for Alex, and it's a good crowd for a 16-year-old guy, right? It's, nothing crazy, but, he's having a good time. And at midnight, I say, we're going back to the room. And he looks at me like I've completely lost my mind. Like we're at the peak of fun. We are at the peak of fun. And I said to him, listen to me. Nothing good happens after midnight. It's only going to go downhill from here. Yeah. It's not going to get better. You think it's going to get better. We're leaving on a high.
Oh, yeah.
And so we were staying across the street from Dre's at the Bellagio. We walked back, and the whole time he's going, I just don't understand. I just don't understand why we had to leave. And I said, someday, Alex, you will understand. Absolutely. So the next day I told Steve the story about nothing good happens after midnight. Yeah. And he goes, he pauses a second. He looks me dead in the eyes. He goes, sweet Lord, where were you? Where were you 25 years ago? That advice would have been the best advice I've ever received in my entire life. He goes, so many bad things happened to me after midnight. I could have avoided them all. Oh, it was so great. Oh, hey, Andrew, let's do this because I know we're going to be back doing this again, and we're going to spend a lot of time on podcasts that'll likely be very topical. But I want to get everybody to get to know you. And again, as I said, 10,000 miles is about sort of the road you've taken. It didn't come great all at once. Let's bypass Intellisys. Let's
Yeah.
bypass PAX 8.
Yeah.
Let's get right to CX Effect.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
you are
Sure.
the founder and CEO of CX Effect.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm a big fan of what you're doing and a big supporter. And I love the ecosystem and what you're doing. I do think
Sure.
it's unique. Tell us through, you know, talk to us about the idea for it, the courage you needed to sort of get there, and what the path has
Yep.
been like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And before
No,
you
I
do
appreciate it.
that, I want to
Yeah.
see you take another sip of your drink,
Oh,
because I don't
absolutely.
think you've sipped another sip of your drink
I
since.
have a couple times. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
All
that's good.
right.
3.5 years ago, man. 3.5
Yeah.
years ago, I started this company. It's been a heck of a ride. You know, I in my speaking at Intellisys, in ScanSource, after that, I started to talk a lot about CX and where it was going, customer experience
Yeah.
technology, and all the new tech around that. And I've said this to you before. I've been accused a few times of being maybe a little too early on trends, and perhaps, you know, this is another example of that. But man, I saw this coming like a wave. The advancements around customer experience technology, and specifically now how it's accelerating around AI, right? We saw all that coming.
Yep.
And it's a massive game changer for businesses all over the planet. I started to talk early on about this idea that the labor dollar, and what I would call the monetization of labor. And what we meant by that was that the countless tens of millions that are spent on staffing contact centers and staffing customer support organizations and so forth, those labor dollars over time are going to shift to technology spend, and they have to, because companies can't hire people like they used to. They can't retain people. You know, it was during
Cost
the
of
great
employment is going through the roof.
cost of employment through the roof. It's just been a nightmare labor has been a massive issue. And then the great resignation, and then throw a global pandemic and all that. And it just kind of blew up everything. Right. And so businesses it's become not just a nice to have or a good idea, but it's become an imperative for like survival, to start to figure out, how do I leverage technology to get more out of my people? And as that dollar started to shift from labor spend to technology spend, that opened up a massive opportunity for people like you and me in the channel.
Yeah.
And so that's what we started to educate partners about. We built another highly specialized master agent / TSD, but focused exclusively on AI and CX. And it's been a grind. It's been fantastic fun. I mean, we've had a lot of success doing it. We've got an amazing partner community. We've built out some really amazing relationships with some of the most innovative companies out there in this space.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting introduced to new technology all the time. But it's also early, and companies are still trying to figure out how do they adjust to this, and how do they, it's become a lot around how do you lead change, how do you manage change in an organization, and enable companies to embrace some of this new stuff faster. But the impact it has on companies and where this is leading is mind blowing. I mean, last year, Vic, was the first year that the number of contact center seats, think of butts and seats, right?
Yeah.
Globally in contact centers. 2023 is the first year that number actually went down. It's never happened before.
You think
And
that's because of deflection and technology?
Exactly. It has to
Yeah.
be, right?
Okay.
It's because that the most expensive way to handle a live interaction with a customer is with a live human.
Yeah.
And so there's this desperate move by companies to embrace automation and deflection and AI, other technologies that can make it possible to solve that customer's inquiry, resolve that problem, whatever it might be, without having to hand a live human having to be a part of that conversation. And what's interesting is us as consumers, right? We see bad examples of that all the time, right? I mean, it's people have been trying to do similar things for a long time, and
Sure.
it's resulted in a lot of frustration for us, right? I mean, you're a minute into a call, screaming into the phone representative because you don't want to talk to a bot anymore, right? We've all had these experiences.
You're pounding zero
yeah,
repeatedly.
exactly. I hit that enough times, some human's going to pick up. And so people have been experimenting with this for a long time, but the technology had never quite caught up with the desire, the need to deflect calls, and now it finally is. And so we have been seeing an increasing number of examples of companies that are achieving what I like to call delightful automation, right? It's these frictionless experiences that consumers can have, powered by AI, that are completely digital experiences, whether it be on a mobile device or a laptop or whatever,
Sure.
without ever having to interface with a human. And that's becoming more practical for businesses of all sizes to achieve. And the impact on that is really unbelievable. I mean, the amount of spend that is shifting from labor dollars into our space that you and I live in every day now, are just massive numbers. I think it'll represent the biggest transfer of wealth in our channel in my career, for sure. There's no doubt. And it's fun to be
the same way.
Forefront of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah. So you started out, you've got this great idea, you've got this hyper focus on CX, automation, AI, et cetera. And you start calling your friends and your colleagues, and then you put an ecosystem together, and you bring us to this beautiful place called Sundance, Utah, to have the inaugural kickoff of what you've put together. Why don't you tell us about how you put that together, what you decided on, and how you got there?
Yeah. You know, I've always had success running these events that are really unique, that have kind of a captive audience, that is really deep on content and on practical things that kind of open people's minds, that they can walk away with feeling empowered to go build something, right? And I was able to do that a number of times through some programs at Intelisys, and I wanted to recreate some of that magic. But I wanted to do it in a highly focused way. I mean, I believe there's power in specialization, and that's what CX Effect is all about. We're not trying to be all things to all people. So we went out and said, hey, who are the 25 or 30 partners that we could get in a room for a few days? Who are the 8 to 12 suppliers that we could get there that these partners have never heard of? Right? People that are doing really unique things, that are opening up access to new spend that these partners never had access to before. And so we launched this thing called CX Lift, and in CX Lift, we decided that we want to do this at a really cool venue. Where's it going to be? My wife and I, many years ago, back in my LDDS Metro Media days, one of my national accounts was Novell Word Perfect. Remember that?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. And I supported their whole IT team, and they were out of Provo, Utah. And I asked the guy, hey, it's Christmas is coming up in a couple of months. I'd love to host your entire team for a holiday party. Oh, that's amazing. That's great. So yeah. So what's a great venue near you guys to do that at? And without hesitation, he says, oh, Sundance. You got to do it at Sundance.
Nice.
I said, really? I said, and so I looked into it, Robert Redford's old place, and we hosted this party there. And it was Susie and I went, my wife, and we got 30 inches of snow that one day that we were there, and it was just magical, right? And so fast forward to
some would call that tragical.
It was amazing.
But no, I hear you. You've got me, by the way.
Oh yeah, this boy from California that rarely sees snow, and to be in that spot was just amazing. And so fast forward to a few years ago, and I let's check out Sundance. Let's see if we can do it there. And we were able to pull it off. We had our first CX Lift at Sundance, and it was a huge hit. I mean, it was huge. We had so much fun doing it. The feedback we got, and how intimate and the group was. It was a captive audience. Talk about nothing bad happens after midnight at Sundance. Nothing good happens after midnight, right? At Sundance, nothing good happens after about 10 p.m. because I think that's when the park. So
the Owl Bar.
The Owl Bar, that's right.
The Owl Bar. I have a beautiful hat from the Owl Bar. But let me bring you back to the Moon Dance.
Yes,
Because I
please.
told you were part of this
Yes.
drink. So
Good.
you're
Good.
you're graciously hosting us. We're having a great time. And I have to admit, I was a bit curmudgeoned when I heard you were bringing us to Sundance, Utah in December.
Yes.
And I said to my business partners, what the heck is Andrew thinking about? Why not Miami? It's December. It's cold.
Yeah.
There are going to be 30
Yeah.
inches of snow. We're going to be stuck there. Like, what is he thinking about? But,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we're along for the ride.
Yeah.
And I think we had some snow flurries that first year, and it was fine.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place.
Oh yeah.
And, judge only by your personal experience, not by your preconceived notions. So
Yeah.
I
There you
went
go.
there a bit curmudgeon, but open-minded.
Yeah.
And, I mean, gosh, you only have to spend a few days there to just get it. It's a fantastic place. And sitting in the screening room where Reservoir Dogs was acted out. And I'm sitting in seats going, I wonder if John Travolta sat in this seat.
Yeah.
I wonder if Uma Thurman sat in this seat, because they've screened so many movies there.
That's right.
It was great. But so the funny thing is, you know me, I'm not a huge drinker. I have a few cocktails from time to time.
Yeah.
But in the past 6 years, 5 years, my drink is tequila.
Yeah. Yeah.
And certain tequilas I just like on the rocks with a little bit of lime. But I started cutting it slightly, just with like a little topper of a little flavor. And at the time, I was doing pineapple juice, just like a little, little pineapple juice.
Yeah.
So I said to the bartender at one of the dinners that week, and I said, hey, I'd love some of your Blanco tequila with, lime and just a little splash of pineapple juice. He says, oh, sir, I'm sorry. We don't have pineapple juice. And I said, oh, okay, no problem. Do you have any sort of juice aside from, he goes, I've got cranberry juice. And I said, hey, I'll try that. So pow, he pops a little cranberry juice in there. He's got a little lime, mix it up. I drink it. I go, wow, this is better than the pineapple juice. This is amazing. I have a name for this drink now. He said, yes, sir. What's that? I said, it's called the Sundance. And he looks at me like, okay, dummy, we already have a drink called the Sundance. Don't you think we have a drink called the Sundance? And I went, good point. Good point. You probably have a drink called Sundance. I said, it's now called the Moon Dance.
Oh,
the guy goes, that I could work with. Well, the bartender worked your event multiple nights. And so I would walk up and he'd go, Moon Dance? And I go, Moon Dance. And so the Moon Dance was born in Sundance, Utah. And I've got guys we work with now go, what are you drinking? Or, if I'm out with Tim or Chris or whoever, and they run, hey, I'm running the bar, get a drink. You want a Moon Dance? And so it's now the name of the drink. I'm like, absolutely, get me a Moon Dance. Everyth's fine. And so I drink the Moon Dance, which was born. It was born at your event.
That's
awesome.
Great. That's awesome. I'm a big Van Morrison fan, so that.
That. What a fabulous night for a Moon Dance.
A fabulous night for a Moon Dance. That's right.
So, what's on the horizon? I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah.
I wanted to get your take on this. There's a bit of confusion out in the space right now. We're going to tie it into AI and things alike. And there are a lot of people coming, we do AI. And we've looked at enough of the providers to know who's making a solid go at it and who's bolting on some stuff and who's bolting on ChatGPT, sort of public large language models. And there's, a lot of hallucination in that. And, nothing a heavily regulated organization is going to rely on upfront, right? So you need very, very specific requirements around that. Yeah. But I saw an article 2 days ago that basically said, in the next 5 years, companies will waste billions of dollars on AI.
Yeah.
And I just said, okay, can we define that? Because companies waste billions of dollars on technology all the time because of lack of vision, lack of focus, and most importantly, lack of execution. Yeah. So when I saw this article, I discounted it slightly just to say, well, that's true with every technology. People go write custom apps and they write code and they don't have the right, engineers. I don't call them developers. The true guys and gals writing code are really engineers and not developers. There's a distinction between the two. But how, in your opinion, is this or is this not different than any other wave of technology? And
Mm.
when I tell you about reading an article that says people are going to waste billions of dollars on AI specifically, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, if there's one thing I've learned over the past few years, especially over, let's say over the past 18 months, really, right, around AI specifically, is there's a tremendous amount of hyperbole, right?
Yeah.
And so I would categorize that statement as that. I don't think it's completely wrong, right? Just like a guy that walked up to me a year ago at a conference, um, introduced himself as a self-proclaimed AI futurist,
Okay.
and the brain on this guy was massive. But he said a couple of things to me. He says that within 5 years, 95% of all contact center seats will go away.
Yeah. I remember you telling
Now,
me that.
yeah, I don't believe that. I don't believe it's going to be 95%. But Vic, I also don't believe it's going to be zero
Right.
or 10 or even 20. I think it's going to be a really big number.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think the difference, because you and I have seen countless examples of this, no question, of companies that have thrown away millions of dollars on technology and different initiatives, poorly executed, poorly planned, and it's just they just burn cash, right? It's just lit it on fire. I think there definitely, not a might, there's definitely examples of companies doing that today, because their execution can't keep pace with the pace of innovation.
Mm-hmm.
The That's something that you and I just haven't seen before. The speed at which this technology is developing
Yep.
is faster than anything I've seen in my career.
My life.
In,
In my
yeah,
life.
in my life, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a and I think that presents a whole different set of challenges for companies. So on
Sure.
one hand, I'm scared to act because I don't want to make a mistake, and so things just speed off into the distance without me, right? And oh shoot, I've missed it, right? What do I do now? On the other hand, I jump right in and I just start swimming, and I have no idea what's real, what's not, and that's where I'm making lots of bad choices, right?
Yeah.
I think it becomes imperative for trusted advisors that are really really smart forward thinkers to help customers guide themselves and to kind of navigate these waters is more important than ever before.
Yeah.
Helping them sort through what's real and what's not. There are so many companies out there that have simply, I mean, even taken old technology, old products, and simply rebranded it as
Sure.
AI, and suddenly
Yep.
we're an AI company, right? Well,
Yep.
how do you figure that out, right? How do you know if you've not had experience with it? How do you figure out whether or not that's real? And so I think there's going to be a lot of mistakes made. That's already happening. There's going to be lots of companies that spend tens of millions to try to accomplish something, and they're not going to get even to the 10-yard line.
Yeah.
And I think that there will be lots of examples of that. But the guys that um, have a balance between speed in acting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also making really thoughtful decisions, making sure that we've got really smart people that are thinking through the broader strategy.
Yep.
And then I think the guys that are focusing on like small wins, incremental wins to start, those are the ones that I think can really take advantage of this, because it's the guys that come in and say, hey, we're gonna go through this massive digital transformation overnight. We're going to do it in the next couple of months, and we're going to spend countless dollars. We have an unlimited budget. Let's just go. That is like destined for failure. I always remind people that for something to become revolutionary, it first has to be evolutionary. And I think for companies that embrace that idea and say, okay, what are the incremental things that I can do immediately? Like I'm talking like next week, next month, next quarter,
Sure.
to drive very specific targeted outcomes in my business, and then build off of those incremental things. If you do enough of those, before you know it, you've revolutionized your business. I
This
think
is the
that kind of approach
education.
is really
This is
important.
the education. I had dinner a few weeks ago with a pretty senior guy at a very big top bank. And last summer, as you know, they went through a journey of looking at agent assist
Yeah,
AI technologies.
yeah,
Um, and when I sat and talked about who their vendor selection went through and where they landed, this particular person was really not into any of them. And he said, well, you want to give me agent assist? You're going to tell my people what to say? Why can't you not only tell them what to say, but then automate all of the responses back into my systems? And so they don't have to do anything. They're going to guide the conversations, but all of the things you're capturing in the voice are going to update systems and do all of those things. I said, hey, that's a great vision. And I said, have you ever seen an ad for a personal flying, sort of looks like a drone, called the Jetson One? And he said, no, I've never seen the Jetson One. I said, well, it looks a lot like the Jetson flying car from the Jetsons. I said, that was even before my time. And Jetsons was on the tail end of being a cartoon when I was a kid. So that was a long time ago, many, many decades. And I won't reveal my young age today. But I said, it took a while for us to get there. I said, but along the way, planes were improved, flying time was improved, fuel efficiency was improved, customer comfort was improved, and we got Wi-Fi on planes, and we did a lot of things along the way. I said, what your expectations are is that you go from 0 to 100 with just kicking the pedal and your neck would snap back. Yeah. And there's possible that there's a tech that will do that, but you're going to snap a few necks along the way. Yeah. I said, why not take the incremental win with a company that you believe in that has a vision for the future? Yeah. That has a solid basis of how their infrastructure and architecture was built, and what the solution is devised on, and what their roadmap is for the future. Yeah. I said, because you wanting to get from 0, you're completely manual today, to assisting customers in the right space and guiding conversations in the right way using AI and sort of expert language models, and then moving back. And I think this, Andrew, is the problem. I can tell you from my perspective and working through the ecosystem that you've provided, this is the largest challenge that we have. And so together we'll continue to work to knock that down. Clearly, when we find somebody who has a problem, when we have a very niche or a very particular solution to solve it, the conversations become easy. And we've had a couple of those examples along the way. Yeah, yeah. But in the over AI theme, it's a bit of, you're early till you're late. And that's what I tell people all the time. They're like, we're not sure. Big banks aren't doing that. And I'm like, well, I think you're wrong about that. Yeah. I think you're wrong about that. So, again, so we got a lot of noise in the system. What does it take to shake the noise out of the system?
Yeah, I think those incremental wins, that whole point is a really important one for me. I think right now I'm spending a lot of time with leaders that have embraced that idea, that are looking at doing, very specific things that they can prove outcomes on and can prove value around, and build on that. And then our job is to tell those stories. Yeah. Right. And I think the more we tell those stories of companies that are taking those incremental steps and the kind of outcomes they're driving, the massive savings they're putting into the bottom line, what people don't talk a lot about is we can use this technology to drive costs out of the business, but you can also use it to drive revenue. Of course. And so being able to tell those stories of how companies have increased revenue because they've made their whole buying process more frictionless, right? Where it's a delightful experience to be able to buy services from you or products from you. Those are the companies that are going to win. Yeah. I think everything's truncated, right? There are brands that you and I in our advanced age can remember. Were amazing leader brands back in the day that don't exist today, right? Yeah. Yep. As telecom guys, did you ever imagine that Nortel would ever disappear?
I rolled out hundreds of those systems.
Real, right?
Hundreds.
So you see lots of examples of companies that have just been left behind over any kind of cycles of innovation. I think that's just accelerating now. There are companies that are household names today that 18 months from now will be gone, right? So how do people stay out ahead of that? They got to start acting now. You can't simply stay on the sidelines and wait to see what happens, but you have to act thoughtfully. And there's so many easy jumping off points to drive immediate value to the business. That's where we're really focusing our efforts. That's where I encourage partners to focus with their customers. And then we got to tell those stories. We got to tell them in mass. We got to be able to communicate it clearly. And companies will start to wake up to that idea and start to realize, we can do the same. And, if anything, and, I've talked about this, Vic, we've been at this for 3.5 years. I would say just in the past 6 months, we're starting to see a real acceleration.
Flywheel is turning.
Yeah, the flywheel's turning. And that's very exciting to be a part of, no question, because it's been a bunch of missionary work until then, right?
It has, but I can't avoid the stat of the enormity and the growth of something like a ChatGPT.
Oh, no question.
Just a few months it took to get 100 million users.
Yeah.
Unprecedented by leaps and bounds. And I'd be lying if I told you that there isn't a day that goes by that I don't use ChatGPT for something. I'm a paid subscriber. It's worth the $20 a month for professional. It provides an extra set of insight, thought. You tell it to do something, it comes back. I find it most valuable when I tell it about something. So I start by writing something, and then I become the prompt meister. Yeah. Hey, take this, rewrite it, make it simpler, make it more direct, make it less complicated. And I just keep prompting. And then all of a sudden I have pieces and parts that I glue together, and I say, that's a home run. That's exactly what I would have said if I were smart enough to say it.
I use it almost every day for work in Excel.
Yeah.
So,
oh, really?
Absolutely. So
Tell me about that.
Yeah, I'm in Excel every day doing, complex formulas and that kind of stuff. And I'm not smart enough to know how to string together these, 4 or 5 different sum if nested statements, blah, 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 in Excel. So I will literally in ChatGPT say, hey, this is my problem. Yeah. This is where my data sits. I'm trying to get to this answer. Build me a formula.
Great.
And it comes back in seconds and gives me this long string of formulas and it explains in detail how that formula is going to work. And then I can literally click a button, copy the code, copy the formula, go into Excel, paste it in, and it works.
It's perfect.
And sometimes I have to tweak it here and there, but the time it saves me, holy cow. I mean, just countless hours that I would have been hitting my head against the wall trying to figure out how to automate something in a spreadsheet, right? I mean, those are both just tiny little examples. It is limitless what this stuff can do, and it's only getting better, right? Yeah. It's only getting better every single day, exponentially better.
I think the phases of human enhancement will be what we see on the immediate horizon. Yeah. I don't think it'll be human replacement. People are worried about robots walking around and, the world being unemployed and out of work. It's akin to the Industrial Revolution and automation that's come on. I mean, things have evolved, and this is rapid. This is coming at a speed that we probably can't even measure, faster than the first, the line, so to speak, the line of manufacturing. This is going to exponentially be greater, but we've lived through that. We've changed, jobs have changed, outputs have changed, inputs have changed. And I think the same is going to be, it's going to be consistent here. We're going to see that. And the only thing you need to be built for in life, in my humble opinion, is change.
Oh yeah.
Because if you're anchored into where you are and what you're doing and just not growing from it, you're going to be early until you're late. And that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. Here, man.
Andrew, close us out with some final thoughts on CX Effect. What do you see CX Effect looking like here in the next, and because we know these times are short, let's say 18 months. All right. Tell me what your dream is for CX Effect and where you're taking the company.
So I appreciate that. For me, I am interested in a pretty tight group of partners, not hundreds or thousands, but certainly less than 100 that really get this, that invest heavily in it, and get really smart about how to have these conversations and become the tips of the spear for how the channel helps direct and lead customers on this road, right? I'll, you know, they're picked up so much wisdom from people like Jay Bradley, but one of the things that he hammered into our heads every single day at Intellisys, just mercilessly, right, was that it's not about us, it's about them.
Yeah.
What he meant by that was, it's not about us at Intellisys. It's not about, for me, it's not about CX Effect and what we're building. It's about you. It's about our partners. It's about their businesses. And if we just remind ourselves of that every day, that what we're building here, the only reason why we're building it is to serve the needs of top performing partners that are growing real businesses, that want the help, want the knowledge, want the tools, and kind of the skills to go blow this thing up, right, and to take advantage of this market shift. If all we do is focus on helping those partners be successful, CX Effect is going to be just fine.
It's awesome.
And that's such an important lesson. Not everybody in our space gets that. And Jay got that in spades. He carried that flag every day, and we all believed it. We all drank that Kool-Aid. And I think that's more true today than ever before. If CX Effect continues to just really invest our time and energy into people like you, man, and your peers, right, we're going to enjoy some amazing success together.
Awesome. And I have one last question.
Yeah.
And it's along the entire 10,000 miles theme.
Yeah.
You have a great story. And we kept this in about 90 minutes or so. And I'm sure we can talk for another 9 hours.
Sure.
What would you tell people who have an entrepreneurial spirit and or are coming up the curve in their careers? Because I think the thing that's consistent here is that these nights, that the things that seem like overnight success, they've been very long nights.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, there are things that have gone on. What pearl of wisdom would you lay down right now to give to people on their journey to their own personal success?
Yeah. I would probably say this, and not everyone has been blessed like this, but I certainly have, and I'm grateful for it. Find your person, your partner in this. I met Susie when I was 13 years old. We have this picture of ourselves at her Sadie Hawkins dance.
Nice.
She's 5'3", but she's sitting on a bale of hay, because if she stood up, she would have been taller than me in this picture. And we got married young, right? This year we'll celebrate 35 years. We think it's going to work out.
Yeah. You're still on trial. She's going to let you know.
Right. And as I say, that's, for some people that ship has sailed, but regardless, wherever you're at in life, I think going on this journey, as you put it, imagining to going on this journey without her by my side would be a dark place. And she's been an incredible encourager to me, and there for me in good times and bad, always helping me keep my eyes on the prize, and it's been that much more fulfilling knowing that we've done it together. That's
awesome.
This is not a one-man show, right? I mean, what you and I do, it is.
But I got to admit, losing a job and taking your wife to Disney, it kind of softens the blow a little bit. It's like, okay, Team Andrew.
That's right. Yeah. It's Jay asked me years ago when I'd first joined Intellisys, and I was traveling. We were on the road a lot together, and I would bring Susie on my road trips with me. And he pulled me aside one time early on and said, Andrew, it's really, I love Susie to death. Don't get me wrong. She's great. But it's a little strange because you're the only executive that brings his wife on these trips. And I said to him, well, Jay, I appreciate that. I said, but you need to know this about me. I'm a better me when I'm with her.
Look at you.
Yeah. And he said, okay. Within months, all the executives are bringing their wives on these trips.
That's great. Look at you. That's fantastic.
Really interesting. So that would be my thing for me, man. Find your person that you can your traveling companion on this journey of 10,000 miles, right?
I love it, man. Hey, Andrew, thank you so much for the conversation tonight. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really did. I'm grinning ear to ear.
All
I
right.
learned a few more nuggets about you, even after, our relationship of 7+ years now, that are going to make me smile when I click stop on this recording feature. So thank you again. Much appreciated.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing, man. I appreciate
Hey, last cheers. Last cheers. Let's finish them up. Let's finish them up. Bing. Thank you.